Yo, guys, it's Kyle coming at you from Bane's Film Reviews. Today, I am doing something a little bit different, sitting down with Ken Radner or Grace Radner. You can call him whatever you'd like today. And we're just going to chat about two of my favorite movies. We're going to talk about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and then my all-time favorite film, Empire Strikes Back. So, Ken, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and chatting about some awesome films. How are we doing?
Doing great. Thanks, really. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here, and this is really going to be a fun time. I'm very
Yeah,
excited
yeah.
about it.
Of course. Like I said, this is new. So I usually sit down with filmmakers and chat about their films. So it's really nice to be able to sit down and like chat about films that I genuinely love and not ones that I'm new to. Um, so I'm excited for this. And so I prepped no questions. I just kind of want to bullshit for a little while. Um,
Cool.
this might be, bullshit hour with Kyle Bain today. Uh, uh, I hope John doesn't sue me over the name, um, but so I want to start with Bill and Ted. Like I said, I watched it the other night. I just fell in love with it again. It's probably been a few months since I've watched it, and it's just such a fantastic film. I like on the surface, it's kind of I mean, it is a goofy movie. It's super silly. It has these really asinine characters, but they're so relatable. And so, like, what is it about that movie that's so accessible and relatable, do you think?
Well, I think at the time it was done, all right, those type of guys were like people we all knew people like that,
Mm,
or in some sense we had some of that in us. So it was completely, accessible characters to us. And then the point beyond that is, like you said, it's like so stupid and goofy, but they
mm.
actually try to bring a little bit of depth into it.
Yeah,
Like they actually, they actually do experientially, they learn things, which
yeah.
that was, yeah, that was like one of the things is like there was um this one thing I was looking at about, thematically in the movie, the idea of just learning things just through a book and just having to learn it by rote as opposed to actually experiencing something
Mm.
and then getting to apply it. They were kind of like fighting those two things against each other because all the teachers wanted them to do in school was just read the book, learn this, write a report.
Yeah.
And then the way they learned though was I'm going to go there, I'm going to do it myself, I'll experience it, and then I'm going to apply what I've learned. And they actually do. It's weird that it's such a stupid movie, but they kind of do grow as characters in the
They
end,
do.
which is, yeah, which is, and it's really because the guys that wrote it, like the
Yeah.
two writers that wrote it were like they were like they were trying to be actors and they were like
Yeah, they were
improvisational acting guys.
yeah, they did like sketch comedy and things like that, and they created these characters, and apparently there was originally a third character that wasn't quite as on board as these
Bob,
guys. Yeah, there was Bob, Bill and Ted and Bob, which doesn't flow quite as well. Um,
no,
but to your point, so I'm a special ed teacher, so I'm constantly dealing with scaffolding and modifications and things like that, and trying to figure out new ways to teach new kids, especially in this age of technology. But it's interesting how in depth it goes and how it analyzes education and teaching and things like that. Because again, on the surface, it looks so stupid, but the fact that they're able to do things like this, and then so one of my favorite lines in the entire film is when Bill falls down the staircase when they're in the castle, and he goes, "You killed Bill, you medieval dickweeds." And like
mm-hmm.
it's such a silly line, but you can tell like in that instant, like they're not just goofy friends; they genuinely care for one another. You can actually see the
Yeah,
emotion on his face, and so it's little things like that that I think help make it accessible and enjoyable, and you can keep coming back to it. But the fact that they refer to like Socrates as Socrates throughout the whole movie, or they
yeah.
refer to the Billy the Kid as Mister the Kid, like there's such a disconnect, and they're still able to learn something through the process. Um,
Yeah.
and it's go ahead, go ahead.
No, well, I mean, they very much are just like a team of two. It
Yeah.
was, um, I remember reading something about in the initial conception, they were just supposed to be like, skinny, nerdy guys
Hmm.
who didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
And, and then when Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves came in, and they started doing it, they were like, "You guys are acting it like you're too cool,"
Yeah. I
you
did read
know.
something like that.
But
Yeah.
right, but then I think the idea is that by going the way they went with those type of character devices that you were talking about, they it would seem like the kind of guys that like some people might be friends with them, but ultimately they kind of like keep them at arm's length because they're like a
Yeah.
little too much of it, like they're just like really so, like I guess dorky in a way, but not in a
Yeah.
nerd way, just like kind of in like socially inept in a sense.
Yeah.
um so I think they mainly kept themselves to like themselves as that group, and like you said, they definitely have, they're more related to each other than they are to their own family members.
Yeah. They're very much the potheads before being a pothead was mainstream.
Yeah,
Uh,
in a sense.
yeah, they were very clicky, I guess, at that time, if that's the right word. Where I feel like, I mean, it was a little bit before my time, but I feel like being a pothead was one of the cliques, and they kind of all stuck together.
So but what's funny about the movies, they never even kind of bring that into it.
They
They're just
don't.
kind of like stupid surfer dudes, but it's also a product of the time,
Yeah.
because back then there was like a big, you couldn't mention anything about, that sort of thing because it was
Yeah.
just, everything was such a difficult situation.
Yeah.
But what they most reminded me of, which again, they kind of, didn't go all the way with it, is every time you see them, I'm like, these guys are just imitating Spicoli.
Mm,
Like that's all they're doing, like through this whole
yeah.
thing. And I remember he would say when he went to act for the role, when he went to audition for the role, Sean Penn, I mean, that you know they explained to him the character, and he's like, I know these guys. I went to school with these guys. I'm friends with all these guys. Give me 3 seconds. And then he just like busted out doing it. They're like, okay, you got it.
Yeah.
Because that's like he grew up in that whole, sort of thing.
Right.
And
Right.
they carried that over, but I think they, they watered everything down to try and make it most accessible to the most amount of people, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, it extends itself beyond just a film. I mean, there's three films, and
Mm-hmm.
there were comic books and merchandise and everything else. And I did do a little bit of research on that, so I lied a little bit earlier. I did a little bit of research on that, and there's like less than 1% of films manage to transcend other markets like that. So, I mean, what do you think it is about this film that allowed it to to be so big, not just accessible, but branch out and do other things?
Well, I think it's very much a product of the time. I
Hmm.
mean, I think they nailed the cultural references,
Yeah.
and just the idea that someone like this. Like I was, when did it come out? It was nine. Was it 90? What year was it that it came out?
I actually don't know off the top of my head.
I gotta see. I'm trying to remember if it was like late 80s or early 90s. I think it was early 90s.
Okay.
Um, and because that, at that time, I mean, that was when, I mean, early 90s was when I was just kind of like finishing up with college and getting out of
Hmm.
college.
Yeah.
So, like, I saw this kind of thing going on, and I'm like, all right, same thing. Like, I know guys like that. I knew them in high school. I just left a guy, in my biology class, we're gonna go hang out later. Like,
Yeah.
he's Ted. I mean,
Yeah.
so I think, and just the style, and then also, I mean, just to say, when they did the second movie, I mean, with the
Hmm.
Battle of the Bands, having them beat Primus, which is like, there's no way that that's possible with the song that they wrote, but just the idea that they put them in the movie
Yeah.
shows that it wasn't just like a kind of thing where, like, we'll put in Coldplay or we'll put in Hootie and the Blowfish. It was like, no,
Yeah.
Primus.
Yeah.
Like, so they had a little bit of that, you know, um, undercurrent and alternative culture that they seem to
Hmm.
infuse into it. And then
Hmm.
having George Carlin in it, I mean, at
Yeah.
that point, like, I mean, come on, it was ridiculous. And supposedly it wasn't even supposed to be George Carlin. They wanted Sean Connery to play it.
Yeah, I had seen so many
Yeah,
things that
yeah,
all these different people were supposed to play these roles, and they all sort of seem to be happy accidents that they found these
yeah.
people, and it worked very well. But to your Primus point, when you mentioned them the other day, I was actually not familiar with that band outside of
Okay,
Bill and Ted. It's not a band I listen to. I downloaded the entire their entire thing, and I started listening to all their music, and they're fantastic.
Yeah, there. I mean, if you're going to talk about talented musicians, it's like
Yeah.
you don't want to go with that thing. Oh, I just like them because like they say silly stuff and they're crazy.
Mm,
Just the amount of talent out of every single one of those guys
yeah.
is just it's incredible.
Yeah.
So they're very. I mean, you like the music or you don't like their music, but you have to admire the talent that they have, and I have that too. Where like there's some types of music like I don't necessarily like it,
Yeah.
but I will be like, wow, that's a very talented musician.
Right. Right. So I'm not really in the know when it comes to music like that. Like I can analyze a film. I can't quite analyze music like that. And I have some
Okay.
good friends, my brother-in-law and then a good friend of mine are really into music and they break it down and I'm like, I really have no idea what you're talking about. This just sounds really good to me. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where
Good.
I'm at with Primus. Like I feel like I understand it maybe on an unconscious level. Like I know that this is talent, but to me it's just good music. And
Yeah. Oh no, they're definitely good, and they always have. I mean, they're just. I mean, and they've been around for so long. I mean, they've been
yeah.
around since the '80s,
Hmm.
and they never they never fall off. Like they'll
Right.
do one album that maybe isn't as good as the last one, but there's always a couple of songs on there that it just
Mm.
gets you. It just grabs you.
Yeah. I downloaded the entire catalog, like I said, and I've been listening little by little. And I'm terrible with if somebody were to ask me, well, which song did you like? I can't remember, but I remember I've enjoyed all of them so far, all that I've listened to, maybe 20 or 30 songs.
Okay, well,
So
I'm going to chalk that up as I just made a convert. So there you go.
yes, yes, you did. I was gonna
I
say
win.
thank you very much for that. Um, and then I am curious, did you enjoy the newest Bill and Ted Face the Music?
um, you know something? It did. You know what? I was okay with it. I
Mm,
wasn't like, oh, this is a piece of crap. It
yeah,
was good. There was funny parts. Getting them to see their alternate selves like in prison and stuff like that. That was
yeah,
really funny.
yeah,
I mean, it had a similar feel.
right.
It's just that it's obviously there's something. I felt like there was a little bit something missing just because the other movies were, like I said, they were very much a product of their time.
Yeah,
So now it's kind of like going back and revisiting it, and that's great and it was fun, but it wasn't what it well, like many other things that they've been doing
sort of.
reboots of, it wasn't what it was.
Yeah, they tried to bring it back to life essentially 30 years later. And I don't know if it's possible to recreate what's been done so well that long, like in modern times. And they obviously try to do it with a more modern feel, and bringing Kid Cudi into the mix and things like that, and introducing their children, and then Rufus's daughter and things like that, which is a nice nod to the fact that he mentions his daughter in the first movie and things like that. Like we know she exists. It's nice to finally get to meet her. Um, so I enjoyed that because I think it sort of did for me what the original did for, 80s kids, 70s and 80s kids, but it doesn't hit the same notes, so to speak, as their excellent adventure.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I'm saying, I'm not going to say it was bad. It's just
Yeah,
well, and then all stuff. I mean, of course, you don't have Carlin anymore, so you can't bring
right.
that back. And
Yeah.
it's so there's certain things about it. It's never going to be as good. It was okay as like a send off. That's
Yeah.
like the last thing they're going to do. Fine.
Mhm.
You go out on a decent note.
And I do really enjoy the fact that Alex Winter hadn't done things in so long. He went back to acting school and he kind of just fell back into that role so like almost effortlessly. I mean, he just picked up where he left off, and he did such a great job. I think it's because I think you look at Keanu Reeves, for all intents and purposes, is not a great actor. Um,
No.
but I think people just view him as as Ted, this doofy character, or for some slightly more modern audiences, people view him as Neo, which again, you don't really require a ton of skill as an actor. But Alex Winter is just a very good actor. The fact that he's able to pick that back up so quickly, so many years later, I think was awesome.
See, now I'm not aware of a whole lot. Like you said, Alex Winter kind of didn't do a whole lot. And
Hmm.
there's only really one other movie besides Bill and Ted that I've ever been aware of Alex Winter doing,
Yeah.
and it was called Freaked. And I'm not sure if you've
Yeah,
ever
I've heard.
seen that.
I haven't seen it, but I have heard of it.
You should really watch it.
Okay.
With Randy Quaid as some insane carnival barker,
Okay.
scientific geneticist who like
Okay.
melds people together and like changes them and stuff. It's really bizarre. It's hilarious. Keanu Reeves is in it also in an
Okay.
uncredited role. I won't tell you who it is. I'm sure you'll figure it out when you see it.
Hmm.
But Alex Winters through the is in he's the main character of it, and it's really it was I think either it was just the music or it might have been semi produced by Gibby Haynes,
Okay.
and Gibby Haynes was the lead singer of the Butthole Surfers,
Okay.
which I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I actually have heard of them. Yes.
Okay, so he was involved in it, and I think Alex Winter had something to do with either direction or production. Like it was
Okay.
very Mr. T is in it,
Okay.
So I mean, there's a lot going on all at once.
Okay. I will definitely look into that, and I'll try to watch that as
And
soon as
did
possible.
you ever watch Blossom?
I did not watch Blossom.
Okay, all right. Well, the guy that played her brother is in it too. So it's
Okay.
just it's just
Okay.
just like I said, from people from around that time, you were seeing all those people. You're like, oh my god, it's that guy, and it's that guy, and it's that guy. And you're in
Uh,
this movie that's ridiculously bizarre. So it was good.
yeah. But yeah, I don't think I think other than Bill and Ted and Freaked, I don't think he did much, if anything else, honestly. I know he did a documentary maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago about child stars in Hollywood and like, all the trauma they deal with. I don't remember what that was called. But I think that was the last thing that he was, so to speak, in, but it was just a documentary. He didn't need to act for it. But again, it's kind of impressive to be able to come back from being absent for so long and fall back into it. But then
Absolutely.
so the other movie we want to talk about, there is a reference in Bill and Ted. They reference Empire Strikes Back when they are donning uh, armor and fighting each other in the castle. And so my first question for you for Empire is, why is it the greatest movie of all time?
Well, it is. Well, it's for a number of reasons,
Hmm.
right? And they would take a while to enumerate, but
Yeah.
for me, one of the major parts is it's probably one of the first major super popular movies where the good guys lose.
Hmm.
You didn't see that in this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And also that it was blatantly a continuation and then leaving you off, not giving you an ending.
Yeah.
They said this is part of the story. We're moving on to the next one. Probably had some of the best costuming and outfits
Yeah.
in any of the series. I mean, Luke's Bespin outfit is just like I want one of those. I mean,
Yeah.
it's awesome. I mean, his Return of the Jedi outfit was great because it's like that whole
Sure.
like samurai master kind of.
Yeah.
But that Bespin outfit was those fatigues were incredible, and so that I like that. Hans, his jacket, in that one, that was like
Yep.
the best. It was like they just seemed for some reason the costumers doing the uniforms just seemed to hit it really good,
Yeah.
and they brought a lot into it. I mean, it was actually, this is the thing now that I think a lot of movies are trying to catch on to, but they're doing it in the wrong way. So they went into and they made it darker.
Yeah.
So now everything is like we're going to do this, but we're going to make it dark, and it's just like making it
Yeah.
dark for the purpose of making it dark.
Yeah.
This was darker for a reason. You had to give them something to struggle against, so you could ultimately come to a resolution.
Mm.
And it was great. I mean, so much sacrifice in it, so much revelation in it. And so it was just basically, it was like the biggest bombshell. And then Jedi was great, but definitely not as good as this because it was basically resolution. And then they threw in silly
Right.
crap just to kind of like, sell toys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so this team that they're building throughout the course of New Hope, that you're slowly falling in love with, and they finally end up together at the end, and they effectively, win, has now been torn apart very quickly. They've been separated from one another even very early on, with Luke going missing, and I think the fact that they're able to tap into that, you're on the edge of your seat constantly, because you honestly don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, something bad is on the horizon, but you never really know what it is, and it just gets more and more daunting as you move forward. And I completely agree with one of the reasons why it's so good and so popular is the fact that they're able to have evil prevail. The fact that you can have the bad guys win is just insane. And I quote this movie all the time, and I sound like such a nerd when I say it. So whenever I make a deal with my students, or I say something, they're like, well, that's not what you said. I always quote Darth Vader. Well, I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further. And they're like, what the
Yeah,
hell are you talking about?
yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
none of them have seen Star Wars. Um, but
It's
they're
a
like,
shame.
yeah, it is. So actually a few years ago, it was the end of the year, like the last week. They're like, we're not watching Star Wars. I was like, no, you're gonna watch Star Wars the last week. That's all you're doing. I'll give you a grade for it. And we watched the first. We got through episodes one, two, and most of three before we ran out of time. And they're like, can we watch this next year? Can we finish watching this? Like, I don't think they hear Star Wars and they think, oh, you're a nerd if you like Star Wars, or that there's this very specific expectation of who watches it, and it's not true at all. And I
Well, I
love
mean,
that.
yeah. I mean, look, obviously, according to the box office numbers, everybody watches it.
Yes.
So it's like when you're just like you're a nerd. I mean, what was it? Empire Strikes Back was like the top grossing movie, and at the time, with the worldwide earnings or something for other movies that released at that time, it was like five times the second
Oh my.
movie.
Wow.
Like yeah, yeah, it was an insane amount of money that it
Yeah.
made. You know, so it was just ridiculous. So like when people say that kind of thing, it's just because they think, oh, it's a science fiction movie. Or like you don't realize everybody was watching that movie. There were
Hmm.
lines around the block for
Yeah.
weeks. It was. I mean, just going to see it was like ridiculous, and we
Yeah.
we had to wait a couple of weeks just to go and see it. And the good thing was, so like I saw it with my little league group. We went out
Okay.
on a field trip and we went and saw it. And then the good thing was, I mean, you're talking about, before there was really internet or any way to get information around real quickly.
Yeah.
So nothing got spoiled. You could go see it a
Right.
couple of weeks later and it'd still be fresh.
Yeah.
So that what was great about something like that for, I mean, a movie that has possibly one of the biggest reveals ever
Hmm.
in the history of cinema, to not have it spoiled for you is
Yeah.
great, because the entire episode 7, 8, 9, like everything got spoiled for me because I just be like
Yeah.
scrolling past something, not even looking for anything.
Right.
Like I just scroll past it and be like, here's why this had to happen. And I'm like, God damn it.
Somebody, God, it was somebody actually told me for episode nine. Um, they're like, yeah, Kylo Ren's good now. You gotta be kidding me. It's been 2 days. The movie's been out for 2 days, and you decided to spoil
Yeah.
it for me. But like stuff like
Yep.
that was real gimmicky kind of stuff like that. And Star Wars will never be Empire again. And I didn't see
Yeah.
Empire until I guess it was 2000, because episode one came out in two. No, I guess it was 98, because episode one came out in 99. So when they re-released the original three in theaters, my dad took me to see each of them at their midnight re-release, and he was super busy all the time. He was a police officer. He worked night shifts, so I know that part of the reason I love this movie so much is because it was like a small chunk of time with my dad that I didn't often get, and he actually hates Star Wars, which I think actually makes me like it more. The fact that he took me to see these movies that he hated, and sat through like 9 hours of movies at midnight is incredible. And so people always ask, what's your favorite movie? I don't know if you can really say what your favorite movie is. I always say Empire, and that's part of the reason. And I mean, the
Well,
fact that we're here 40 years later and we're saying the same things, we're just praising it the same as we did that long ago is insane.
now I do have a similar experience. Now it wasn't for Empire, but it was for A New Hope.
Hmm.
You know, I went with my dad
Yeah.
and we watched it. And then um episode 7 came out, that was I took him to go and see it.
Okay.
So it was like he took me to go see that one, and I took him to go see the first new one, you know.
Okay.
And so that was it. Definitely had a similar, kind of connection to that. That
Hmm.
our fathers took us to see it, and then we experienced it with them. Um, so it would, that's definitely something. I mean, it was a familial thing. Like,
Yeah.
I know, my dad was, like not really like the biggest science fiction movie guy. He was more about, like World War II movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where the original Star Wars trilogy comes into it, is because they modeled it very much after, like World War II era kind of movies, and then like some samurai stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, so that definitely, at least it got him that far, and then I just kind of like took it from there.
Yeah.
But it definitely is good to have that, kind of familiar relationship with it. It definitely,
For
carries things
sure.
over.
And so my grandfather's another one that hates Star Wars, and he has it's hilarious every time. He's told me the story, I don't know, 5,000 times. He's 91 now. And
Oh boy.
when it A New Hope was released, he was on vacation with my grandmother at Cape Cod. She grew up just outside of Cape Cod. And he goes, "Oh, everybody's raving about this movie, so I'll go to the theater and watch." And he goes, "I'm sitting there and I get to this bar scene and this guy shows up with these balls on his chin and
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what is this?" And he goes, "I look down and the kid in front of me's sleeping." And he goes, "I'm done." He said he got up and walked out. I was like,
Oh.
"Oh my God." And he still teases me about it. He calls Obi-Wan Kenobi Okie Hokey Finoki. Like he doesn't know any of their names. He just teases
Yeah.
about it. But they like I'm 32 years old. I have a Grogu doll sitting on the ground over there. They're like, "Oh, it said Star. It says
Yeah.
it." They're like, "It said Star Wars on it, so we figured you'd want it." So they just buy me Star Wars things. And
Okay.
but I mean, he hates it, but I think to some extent he gets it. Even though he doesn't like it, he understands how important it is, not just to me, but there's a whole culture that follows this.
Yeah, well, it is impossible to ignore it at this point.
It really is. And I mean, it's February 28th. This won't post until after it's released, but tomorrow's Mandalorian. Uh, ha
Mm.
are you all caught up on Mandalorian?
I am. I
Mm,
mean, what can you say? It's like it's for the new stuff that they've been doing. It's Mandalorian, Andor, and Rogue One.
yeah.
Those are like the greatest. Like I have a tough time when Rogue One came out. I had a tough time dealing with Empire and Rogue One, because I was like, all
Hmm.
right, which one is better now?
Yeah.
Because obviously Rogue One, just production values and special effects, stuff like that's
Yeah.
way better. The writing's still good. It still has the tragic ending. Like I
Yes.
basically think they sort of took Empire and just kind of, tried to do the same beats,
Yeah.
and then the way they just ended it, like 5 seconds before A New Hope starts.
Yes.
Like it was just they made it perfectly. It was
Yeah.
just like it was really well done, well written. Everybody was acted well in it.
Yes.
Um, so that's why I always get conflicted when people start asking me what's your favorite. And I was
Okay.
like, well, yeah, I have to say Empire, but I was like, Rogue One's pretty.
It, Rogue One was fantastic. Somebody made a point. I was scrolling through TikTok and there was this podcast that came up and they talk about like all nerdy things. And one of the guy goes, "Hot take, Rogue One sucks." And and his issue was that the characters are unlikable. And to a degree, I don't think they're unlikable, but I don't know if they're definitely not as enjoyable as the originals. I think you get like you have Cassian and you have K2SO that I think are the main two that people connected with. You know, Jin was good. The others, I don't remember their names honestly because I think they're just devices to help tell the story and get us to a point that we're all familiar with. And but it's so well done. I mean to come back, we talk about trying to replicate things that have happened in the past. They do it with this for for the most part. They do exactly what people loved with Empire, and they do it well again.
Well, first of all, I think out of all of that crew, K2SO was the most likable out of all of
Oh
them.
yeah. Oh yeah.
He was definitely Alan Tudyk is an amazing actor. He's
He's so
always
good.
able to bring a warmth to what he does.
Yeah.
It's like you always love him. Anytime he does
Yeah.
something, you're like, oh, I like you. Um, and I think what they did well with Andor's characters, like in the very beginning of the movie, when he's meeting his contact in an
Mhm.
alleyway,
Yeah.
and the troopers get alerted, and we got to climb, and he's like, I can't with my arm, and he just like it's like his friend just shoots him in the back and kills him because he knows he's
Yep.
a liability now.
Yeah.
As soon as that happened, I was watching it with a bunch of friends of mine. As soon as that happened, I turned to them and I go, "This is what Han Solo was supposed to be."
Okay.
I was like, "This is totally." I go, "They're trying to make him like." That's why I saw there was like a lot of parallels. I was like, "He's supposed to be Han
Yeah.
Solo. Han Solo's technically supposed to be kind of ruthless. I mean, he did shoot Greedo without him. Greedo was just talking to him, and he's just like, yeah, okay, boom."
Right.
So it's like he's not above just straight up murdering somebody if he needs to,
Yeah.
if it serves his purposes. And it's like, and this is the same situation, except now you find out there's like an increased depth to it, and it's because he's had to do this since he's a kid,
Hmm.
because of how the Empire, oppressed everything, and so I
Yeah.
mean, it brought a certain it brought it to a greater level of politics, which I'm not sure is was necessary or not,
Yeah.
but it definitely gave it a weight, I guess, in a sense. But it did
Yes.
also make it more. I mean, but Star Wars in itself, just like you were saying, it did have a little bit of that lightheartedness to it,
Hmm.
where you're following all these fun guys, romping around the galaxy, and Rogue One did not have that.
No,
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely more of like I said, it had more weight, it had more like sourness to it, I guess, in a
for
way.
sure. Yeah, I actually have not finished Andor yet. I think I have two episodes left. I'm obviously
Hmm.
very far behind, but
Yeah, no, I'm behind with Andor also.
okay. It took me a little bit to get invested in it. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's obviously significantly different than most of the rest of the universe, thematically and stylistically. And I think it's nice because I think they're just pushing out content as quickly as they can. So to see something fresh is is refreshing. So I really need to finish. And Obi-Wan was fantastic. Um, I
Yeah.
I remember thinking whatever day it came out, I thought it came out the week prior. And I sat down. I was so excited to come home from work. I had a rough day. I sit down and it wasn't there. And it just ruined my whole day. Then we finally sit down when it does come out and they recap the prequels. And I bawled. I cried.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like you don't realize sometimes how important something so trivial is, and it really is such an important part of me and other people. And
Yeah.
I was so
No,
excited.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, it was definitely, I mean, it's just the type of job that he does, uh, imitating Alec Guinness is
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
Just like how he uses the same voice inflections and that little bit of nasally tone to it.
Hmm.
And Ewan McGregor he studied, I guess, apparently for a really long time because he got it. I mean, he nailed it. It
He did.
was yeah, he's very, very good at it, I really liked it. There was a couple of things, that I had issues with, but it was minor stuff, like how they have the well, I guess at that point they weren't snow speeders, but they have the two speeders coming to the base
Yeah,
when when he's got Princess Leia under his coat,
yeah,
like walking on like three kids piled up on a coat,
yeah.
and like the speeders come in, they're shooting everything up, and then they just sort of like stop, because what I was noticing is the speed they're coming in, I'm like, you guys are going to crash right into the building.
Right.
You're just going to totally crash. And then they just like start hovering. And I'm like, well, snow speeders didn't hover really, but
Right.
maybe they could. I don't know.
Who knows?
You know, yeah, exactly. So that's right. So it was just like minor, like, stuff like that, was
Yeah.
what I had issues with, just like a little, nerdy, nitpicky stuff. Other than that, it was really good.
Yeah. And then Hayden Christensen, again,
Yeah.
fantastic. Another one that
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
fell back into this role so well. And when they go back and forth between his voice and the robot voice, so well done.
Yeah, I think he really redeemed himself a lot in this
Yeah.
role in this time, because there was some stuff about um Clone Wars episode 2 that he
Mm.
did that I really like. It didn't work well with me with him. So I
Yeah.
got a feeling that he kind of really redeemed himself with this one. He did a very good job.
Yeah, in the past he had been very whiny, and I know that that was part of the character. That's like part of the whole Skywalker legacy is they're all very whiny. But like the actor was whiny. Like Hayden was whiny, and I didn't like
Yeah.
that about him. He obviously got better in Revenge of the Sith, but like you said, this was his chance to redeem himself, and he really did it.
Yep, I agree.
So again, thank you for sitting down with me. We got, maybe a little off topic going on to some other Star Wars things, but where can everybody find you, Ken?
Okay, everybody can find me on Facebook. It's Ken Radner, Ken space Radner. And you can, send me a DM and let me know that you heard about me on the podcast. And I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Let me know what you guys think. This is something new. Like I said at the start, we haven't done one of these before where I typically sit down and talk about someone else's movie. It was really nice to sit down and talk about movies that I genuinely love, like I've had a love for the last 25 years. So Ken, thank you again. Thank you for taking some time. I know I'm cutting into your dinner time, but we'll definitely do it again and have a great night, man.
Thank you very much. I really had a great time.
You are more than welcome. Thank you. Thank you. See ya.